Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting of March 9th, 2023. First on the agenda is Platinum Propane, 1035 Route 6, site plan. Rich?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Forgot that Mike wasn't here. The applicant has noted all the referrals and the permits that are necessary. They've provided the SWIP, which is currently under review. They've provided traffic information. We still, they said they met with the DOT, so hopefully the DOT approves the plans that they've provided. They talked about not having to do a traffic study, and hopefully the DOT will review that and approve, agree with that. They will need to provide a stormwater maintenance agreement and performance bond and engineering fee.
Pat, when you read yours, would you summarize Mike's?
Yeah, Mike simply indicated that the variances were granted by the ZBA last month. My comments, Mr. Chairman, when Adam was last before you, he clarified a number of issues relating to how this facility was going to operate as a wholesaler, the volume of trips from their trucks that would operate from the facility. They clarified the issues of the propane permitting, that there were no special permits required for that. And the new material that was submitted, we had one final group of questions that related to lighting on the site. They provided a photometric plan, and the illumination levels are well below zero at the property line, so there are no issues with the lighting plan.
Thank you. Members of the board? Comments? Questions?
I just want to say you did a great job following up on all of our concerns, and I commend you on a really good plan.
Appreciate it.
Adam, I was there today, pulled in a little bit. So there's a garage. Behind the garage is a car. There's a house.
Correct.
And from the road to the right, there's an old shack, an old building there.
Yep. So we've shown those to be removed as part of the site plan.
All those items be removed as part of the site plan?
There were, I believe, 3 shown on the plan, and they would all be removed. To call them structures at this point was kind of a stretch. It's basically, it's what used to be a structure. It's generally just a pile of wood at this point, and those would be taken out as part of the project. The garage, as you mentioned, is also to be removed, and then the building, just as a reminder, is to be converted to an office for the propane business, and that building was subject to the 2 variances that we got approved at the February meeting of the ZBA.
So I drove in purposely because I wanted to drive out, right?
Sure.
And there's some landscaping, I think it's forsythia, so right on the front of the road that really should come down. It's not hard to pull out of there. It's not, I made a left coming out of there. But I do think you should err on the caution side there.
Absolutely, and we've shown proposed landscaping along the frontage. We did, in fact, I believe, adjust it at one point, per one of Pat's comments, to pull it back for site distance concerns, and those forsythia will be taken out. Additionally, I'll point out that the one condition to the variances that were granted by the ZBA were that they wanted to see evergreen plants planted between the building and the frontage. So we've shown those now in the site plan.
But not close to the road.
Not close to the road. We'll keep them out of the site distance triangle.
And Rich, it's up to the DOT if they're going to do a traffic study?
Well, no, it's not up to the DOT to do it. The applicant has indicated that due to the volume that they don't need to do a traffic study. We can tend to agree with that, but the DOT may have a different opinion on that.
So we've submitted to DOT. We're still awaiting comment. We've provided, for the town's records, we provided the entrance plan that we put together, submitted to the DOT. We provided that to you all as well. So there's been some tightening up of the geometry and just the details of that driveway. And again, we're awaiting comment from the DOT. And we'll obviously share any correspondence we have with them going forward.
Some of this is repetitive from previous meetings, but the buildings that will be there when you're done if you're done, is like a lean-to, a three-sided figure,
Correct. So.
an office building?
Yep. So just to review the site plan real quick, the existing dwelling is here. That's the one that's to be converted to the office. Again, that was
That's the
subject.
building, the White House?
Correct.
Okay.
And that was subject to the two variances, was a front yard setback and a minimum floor area variance that were granted last month. The garage that you referenced, that is to be removed. The proposed buildings, really the proposed building is this one here. And yes, I think you described that pretty accurately. Essentially, it's a lean-to type building, meaning that it will have the sides, the facades that'll be facing out towards Route 6 will be finished, will look like a building. The side facing in toward the site will be open, and that's where the service vehicles will be stored. The only other structure that's associated with this project is the canopy that's shown here behind that other building, and that's just for covering the loading, unloading area for the propane.
I don't remember what the answer was, or if we asked the question, but the lean-to building, is that a pre-engineered steel building, or is that gonna be stick built?
It's definitely a prefab building. The materials, I believe, were noted here. I'm not sure, I think it's a metal roof. I'm not sure of the siding, but we can get you that information. But yeah, I believe it's a metal building. It's definitely prefab, but we can get you confirmation on that.
I'd like to see, hopefully the board agrees with me, is that's an important area for us, plus your neighbor down the street did a superb job on their buildings.
Sure.
I actually drove them both today, look at them and compare. I'd like to see a lot of detail on, like Anthony just mentioned, on the finishes of the buildings, what it's gonna look like, any renderings, what kind of building materials you're gonna use. I think it's a key piece of property for us as you enter the town from Carmel.
Yep. So again, we've provided the elevation and the simple plan here, but I'll work with the architect before our next submission and get you more detailed color swatches and things like that for sure. We'll get you more
And the
detail on
reason I
all
asked
that.
about the building, too, is with the open face, my concern is wind, in the event of a bad windstorm or something.
Sure.
If it's an engineered steel building, I'm sure that's gonna be taken into account, but we would like to make sure we have that on the record.
Yeah, that'll all be reviewed, and yeah, of course. And we'll confirm that all of that's been taken into account. And again, we'll get you color swatches and materials and so on.
Thank you.
So I would like to hear from the public on this too, so if anyone wishes to make a motion?
To schedule a
Yeah.
public hearing? Sure. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to schedule a public hearing. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll get some more good feedback at that. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is 910 South Lake Boulevard, amended site plan. Rich, I believe you had some comments on this.
Thank you, yes. The application encompasses a proposal to replace two existing buildings with a 24-room boutique hotel. It proposes an indoor pool based on a review of the submittal. The following comments, the applicant has noted the referrals to the Mahopac Fire Department, DEP, and DOT. They identify that permits are needed from DOT, DEP, and the town of Carmel for water and sewer. The applicant has provided some information with water and sewer, but it's not quite what we were looking for. Flows need to be determined using the New York State Design Standards for Intermediate-Sized Water and Wastewater Treatment Systems, dated March of 2014. So we need to have a report that meets that. For instance, the sanitary sewers demand was based on 5,000 on a service area and at 5,400 gallons per day. The water flow provided a design for 346 gallons per minute, which doesn't really equate to 500,000 gallons per day, which is probably just a peak demand that you were calling for, but it wasn't identified in the report. So, we do have issues with water here. This past summer, as identified in my memo, we were pretty close to capacity, so there's a concern about how much water is going to be used on the property. With the whole thing with water, but the applicant has noted that no irrigation and the indoor pool will not be filled using town water. How's it going to be done, right? How are you going to irrigate your plants? How are you going to take care of that pool? Because the moment this is approved, there'll be a hose in the pool, right? So how do we account for that not to be happening? SWIP has been provided under review. It has to ultimately go to the DEP because it's in a designated Main Street area. Provide a legend on the sheets, just so there are some legends on the sheets. It identifies a proposed drilled well. I don't know if they are drilling a well on this site, or if there is a well on the site, if they're using a well on the site, are they connected to town water? That was a question that we had last time that has not really been addressed. They also identify retaining walls. Any wall over 6 foot must be certified or by a structural engineer. There might be a traffic study needed based on, that's up to the board to make that decision, but they have to really go through the DOT and deal with all that, how they're going to have the ingress and egress there, and what may be needed. The SWIP needs some tender loving care. It identifies 2 curb cuts, which now only has 1 curb cut based on the drawings. We need all calculations for the site distances. The applicant did note that they are not going to meet the 8% slope criteria on the property. It's going to be 9.25% going in. So we're going to have to really determine if that's something that they can meet.
That's the slope from the building down onto 6N,
Right, they meet the criteria at 6N, they hit 9.25 going up, and then they flatten out on top.
Got it.
Which is what they have to do. So the 9.25 is somewhat discretionary per our code, but it's something we need to just say, they can't meet it, but can they try to meet it if they could? So there's a whole bunch of other detailed ones that need to just be looked at, but the applicant should note that a public performance bond and associated engineering fee will be needed. Double check the memo. It is typically for erosion sediment control, stormwater management, drainage features, landscaping, and things to that effect as identified in our town code.
Thank you, Rich. Pat, can you summarize Mike's?
Sure, Mike had a couple of issues. He wants the fire department to see this. He's questioning how the height was calculated. He's having a difficult time following what the applicant's done. He's pointed out the 8 variances that would be required for this. He's raised the question of whether blasting would be required, and he's recommending that this go to the architectural consultant as well. So my comments, Mr. Chairman, the big issue here, if you remember, they were last before us in probably November or so last year. The building had increased in size. It went from 24 rooms to 30 rooms. The building at that time was located in the middle of the site. There was a driveway in on the west side and a driveway out on the east side of the building. The big change now is he's gone back to 24 units and he's shifted the building to the east side toward the property line. So now instead of one way in, one way out, it's a single 2-way driveway. He's bucking the same grades that Rich pointed out before, so it hasn't solved the grading issue. It has, by doing that, it's opened up a little bit of additional free space, not much on the site. If you remember, one of the concerns we had originally was when you go to a motel, you usually park your car, go in, and then go and park. There was no place to do that, and if anyone did that on the prior plan, you'd block the driveway entirely. There's a little more space to do that in this case, but the recommendation is they don't have the required parking to begin with. Devote one of those spaces to temporary parking for guests when they're checking in. That might be the first of the handicap spaces that might serve that purpose. But it's tight to accommodate all of that activity. When they were last before us, they explained the purpose of the hotel. Mike can probably talk to you about that. It's a boutique hotel. It's not part of a chain, and how it would be used. But remember, one of the concerns we had was this also includes a restaurant, it includes conference space. So the concern was, would that be rented separately and apart from people going to the hotel? So the applicant's response to that is no. They would only lease that space to people who also rent rooms in the hotel. So theoretically, that would reduce the doubling up of volume on the site. It's a difficult condition to enforce. We'd have to think about how we can actually manage that condition, but that's how the applicant's addressing that. And a bunch of additional minor comments, but I would reinforce Mike's comment that the architectural consultant needs to take a look at this as well.
Agreed.
And, Mr. Chairman, I apologize, I just want to add one thing Pat just, made me recollect. The report did identify a bar and lounge area where patrons can order food during the day and early evening from a limited memo. This needs to be expanded on, right? And if food is being served, there will be a need for a grease trap in that particular facility.
Yep, good point. I think that was in your memo.
It is, I just forgot to read it. There's a lot of details in my memo. I tried to just go quickly over them because they're not going to respond to them all tonight. They're going to get them, and we go from there, so.
Maybe before I turn it over to the board, I'll let you kind of give us an overview of where we stand today.
Sure. Good
Thank you.
evening, Michael Mastrogiacomo, designer for the project. Since we were here last, as Mr. Cleary explained, so what we ended up doing is shifting the building over to the east side, keeping the existing curb cut in order to create the two-way. We feel that this is a better traffic flow. I know there was concerns by staff and the board about the circulation around the building. It was tight because, unfortunately, we only have X amount of feet across the property. So we shifted it over. We tried to keep some sort of a setback. I think we're just under 7 feet. Still requires a variance, but at least it opens up the two-way driveway here. If the board wants, we could always shift it over another maybe 1.5 feet. I wouldn't go any closer to 5 feet to the property line, depending on what staff and the board feels, just to give a little bit more openness at the driveway end.
And Mike, fire department's going to have comments with respect to that.
Oh, yeah,
They'll
that's,
have an opinion whether 5 is enough.
right. I mean, if they want us to go to 4, I just want to try to stay a little bit away from the neighboring property.
They might want it larger rather than smaller so they can get back there, right?
Right. So, one of the reasons for the front yard, it was discussed many, many moons ago when it was still a multifamily residence. We were talking about coming aligned with the building next door. That's how we created the variance. Either way, we needed a variance. But it helped open up the parking area in the back. And I supplied the maneuvering plan, so there is a way for garbage to be picked up and not hit into any cars and get back out safely. The other, just flip it around. So in respect to the height, originally we had 30 units, we went back down to 24 rooms. This terrace here will be an open terrace for a lounge area for anybody, coming to the hotel to have a space to go relax, enjoy themselves. In
Michael,
regards,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, would that be open to the public as a rooftop bar overlooking the lake?
no, we're not looking, the indoor bar, it's not really a restaurant, it's more just the bar lounge area, and this area is for patrons of the hotel, people coming to stay here. We're not looking to open it to the public that, we have a sign on the street, hey, whatever, $7 beers or whatever,
probably be a good
people
business model.
coming in. We're not looking for that clientele. We're looking for a place for people to come relax. It's right across from Lake Mahopac. Come and enjoy the town, help service Villa Barone, hopefully, when they have events that they need something, and to better the community.
Okay. The, couple of the consultants mentioned, we're gonna want an architectural review firm to look at that. You understand that whole process, right?
Yes.
Renderings, materials.
Yes.
Anytime we're building a building like this, another important building for our town, we like to get a thorough, really get, do it once and do it right.
Of course, of course. And I know we're still at the preliminary stages, that's why I haven't fully detailed all that
Yeah.
information yet.
Let me ask the board if they have any questions.
I had a couple, in the materials I noted, I don't know if it was new or it had always been in there, but you referenced that clientele will include extended stay. Could you elaborate on that?
Okay, so what we mean by extended stay is we're looking for people that are coming to visit family that they have living here in Mahopac and the surrounding communities, that they're coming to visit with them for a couple of weeks, and they come and they have a place to stay. If the family doesn't have enough room, something like that. I know there's some professional organizations, like some of the ones I'm a part of, they look that they have a 3 or 4 or 5 day event with different vendors coming in or different classes for continuing education, So that requires some time, and you need people here for 3 or 4 days. So you need, accommodations for that. That's where the, continental breakfast and conference room comes in. That's how we're servicing those patrons, basically.
Would there be a maximum limit on the amount of stay? Number of days?
I don't think we've thought about that far. I mean, we're not looking for somebody to stay here for, 10 years. It's not gonna be a, multifamily residential home.
But someone could stay for the summer, they're visiting family.
Well, if they're here for the summer, yeah, you figure, 2, 3 months. if they're
So
here
Mike,
for
can
the
you
summer.
clarify, you indicated you'd be submitting a market study, is that forthcoming?
Yeah, we can.
So the applicant did indicate that they would be serving business travelers and, like, what business is staying here? So the market study's necessary to understand the market that you're trying to attract to the property, no question about it, so that information's important for us.
And as part of that, if you could drill down and explain what portions of your clientele are contributing to the economic forecast. So how much of this is extended stay, how much of it, as Pat says, is business, and so forth?
Sure.
So I have a couple of questions. So, I mean, one of my concerns, which I've expressed before, is that we're dealing with a really tight spot, and we're really trying to get what you planned into that little spot. And Pat, so in your calculation, you know 1.25 spots per room, but don't we also calculate in employees?
No, not, so the hotel parking requirement presumably incorporates employees, guests, visitors.
Because by my calculation, it's 24 rooms, and then you guys say 12 employees, so that's 36.
Yeah, so there's a practical side to this. There's the zoning compliance issue, they don't comply, and that's why the marketing study's necessary. How does it actually operate if they have a lot of employees, or there are outside uses of this as well as tenants? We have a parking deficiency.
Yeah, I mean, that's really a big issue, I think, that needs to be dealt with. Because you, by your own account, you have 12 employees.
Right,
So,
right.
I mean, if you had a situation, best case scenario, where you had full occupancy, now you're in a spot where you don't have nearly enough parking spots to be able to handle that.
Well, a lot of the employees, what we plan on doing is utilizing the community. So people who are looking for work, they have a place to come to work. Hopefully they can carpool, minimize the impact on the parking area for the patrons, or, we could work out some other, deal with them to get them to work and all.
Best laid plans are sometimes,
We try to
They don't
think
come to fruition.
of the best, and unfortunately, it never happens that way.
been doing this a while. And the other question is, I've asked before, you indicated that the owner also has another hotel that he operates, and I've asked you in the past for the name and the location so that we can take a look at it.
I think it was in Florida or something.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Florida, yeah. So if you could provide that info, I mean, it would be very helpful.
I think it's been in some of the comments previously, and maybe I missed it tonight in introduction, Mike. Are you drilling wells?
We've been going back and forth,
that's- okay.
and one of Mr. Franzetti's comments last time was the whole issue with the demand, the water demand. We originally thought about switching to a drilled well, and then, in speaking with them, we understand we can't do that because we have town water available to us. So we're still in those back and forth. We're
Okay.
gonna be working, off the town system, hopefully. As far as the pool, what we're gonna be doing, because we're planning on making it like a saltwater type pool. So I'd rather have a pool company pump out the water and then fill it, on a yearly basis, or we'd have to see if it's a yearly or every 2 years. We'd have to talk with them for that. As far as irrigation, if the town will allow, that's where I'd rather use the well to do irrigation for the property. Or we can do cisterns that will work off of the roof runoff and utilize that to sprinkler the lawns and the plants.
Right, just so the board's aware, that's a county rule. If you have opportunity to connect into town water, you have to abandon your wells, and you need to just use town water. If we can't connect you, then you can have, a well. So, You're better off, in this case, they're gonna have to use town water. That's the conversation we had a couple of weeks back.
And it's funny because the current property right now is serviced by a well.
Right, and
That's right, yeah.
it needs to get off the well and be on town water, but that's a whole nother story, right?
Exactly.
And the last time you would, I believe you were bringing up calculations and saying that you had some concerns about whether the existing conditions could support the hotel?
Yeah, this past summer, we were in a drought condition, and we have issues with, we're pretty close to meeting what our plant, we can only produce so much water. Once we produce that water, we can only push it out to everybody. And if there's more people demanding the water than we can produce, somebody's gonna be on the losing end of that. That's not how we wanna operate our system, so.
Rich, is there a standard percentage that you operate by in terms of you don't want to go below a certain excess capacity? You know, I know that you said in your memo, we're at 9% now, this would bring it down to 3%?
It would, yes.
So
So you really shouldn't be operating in that range in the grand scheme of things. That's why it was brought to the board's attention.
That's what I'm asking. Is there a standard percentage that you use that says, you know, we don't want to operate below this?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I'm sure that there is, you know. With sewer treatment plants, once you're in 10% of the full capacity, you have to then make a report to the state, and you have to do things with that. I don't know with water.
And for this applicant, is it just water, or is it water and sewer?
Well, it's going to be water and sewer, but we don't own the plant across the street over there. It's the DEP, so the DEP is going to have to give us a blessing too, which is what I've been saying from the beginning. So basically, the water they're going to use and flush down the toilet is going to, go right into that sewage treatment plant. So
So when in this process do we hear what the DEP's concern is?
I think they need to get to a point where we approve them and we pass a seeker resolution, and then they can go deal with DEP. I mean, they can always go and speak with DEP and get opinions from them, but DEP will not provide any correspondence. Typically, they don't provide correspondence. So you have the two issues with DEP, not two issues, but you have two of the many giga-headed monster that the DEP is. You have two of the heads that you're dealing with here. One of them happens to be the sewage treatment plant. The other one happens to be the stormwater in the downtown development area, downtown areas that they have requirements for as part of the watershed rules and regulations. So ultimately, what board moves forward, this project gets to the point where we're doing seeker, then it opens up where they can go and deal with the DEP, and they may say, no way, Jose, or they may say, sure, go right ahead. I don't know, right? They've already had some conversations with the DEP, at least on the stormwater aspect of it. I don't know about the sewer aspect of it.
Not the sewer yet, but with the stormwater and also with DOT, and both of them asked about the secret, where are you at with secret review? I said, well, we're still preliminary. So I can't get too much information from them until we get to that point with the secret review.
So, any other questions?
I did. Is there any provisions, county, if they're the driving force here, to have that well as a secondary source of domestic water?
Typically, that's not allowed.
Like I say, in event of a drought.
I don't know that, though. It's something that they can reach out to the county and find out if that's the case. It's
you
up
would
to the
relieve the
applicant.
burden on the town, and you'd be able to be self-sufficient.
There has to be a hard break, so
I mean, whether it's a
obviously we don't want
series
any
of hard break,
backflow.
or check valves and the whole 9 yards.
There would be a complete hard break. So that's typically what would happen. That's why the wells are normally abandoned, so that there's no chance for any backflow to get into the system and contaminate the water system.
I'll reach out to the county. And
It was just, it's the thought, it's not even
No,
a
no,
request.
listen, to have a conversation with the county, maybe they'll say, you know what, because of the situation, don't even connect and just be self-sufficient on that. I mean, we probably would still need to connect at least for the sprinklers, but that's a whole separate issue, that wouldn't be connected with domestic.
So, my recommendation is you have 5 typewritten pages of comments here. Keep working with Rich and Mike,
Okay,
and as soon as you're ready to come back, we're happy to speak with you.
okay. All right,
Anything else?
I'll call Rose and
Great.
have her send those over.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other questions? I have the owner here, do you have any questions?
I think we've asked them all, and you'll have a copy of the comments from Rose. Call Rose tomorrow. She'll give you should be in Monday. But
Yeah, you'll get them on Monday.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, that's right.
She's off
Yeah,
on Friday.
I think it's all inclusive,
Okay, great.
all right?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is A and B Holdings, 93 Tea Kettle Spout Road, final subdivision. Rich?
Thank you. The application encompasses a proposal to construct a two-story building on this property that still needs to kind of be, the lot lines need to be adjusted on it. Based on the review, referrals will be needed for the Environmental Board, Putnam County Department of Planning, Carmel Highway Department, or Town of Carmel Highway Department, Mahopac Fire Department. Permits from the DEC for stormwater, Putnam County Department of Health for water and sewer or septic, Town of Carmel ECB, and Town of Carmel Highway permit. The area of disturbances have been identified as .7 acres. So the applicant will need to have a SWIP, which they provided, which is only for erosion and sediment control. The applicant, the infiltration, they provided some stormwater management practices. They based the infiltration rates on test records certified by the DOH in 1999. The applicant will need to perform those percolation tests as per the New York State DEC guidelines in the area where the stormwater management practices are proposed. There is an extensive list of practices provided, buffer strips, cofferdams, compost, silt, filter socks. The list should be narrowed, down to site-specific practices. The SWIP given to us was about 2 inches thick, so it had a lot of information that was extraneous. Inspection checklist, same thing. They just give us the ones that we need for the site. Drainage area should be provided on the drawings. Location of swales should be provided. SWIP should be a standalone document and include applicable drawings and details. There are easements related to the site. The narrative of these easements should be provided and must be shown on the drawings. Applicant has indicated that 10% open space will be set aside. This area must be identified and noted on the drawings. This was both on the application when the application was submitted. The applicant may be required to supply a stormwater maintenance agreement. They should provide a performance bond and associated engineering fee, which is related to stormwater management practices, erosion and sediment control, drainage features, landscaping. It's in the memo. There's a whole bunch of detailed comments, scale on the cover sheet, legends on drawings, electronic version of the SEAF. The drawing appears to, sheet 100 appears to be an original survey map that had wetlands flagged from 2022 identified. There should be a scale on that drawing. It's hard to scale anything off. The wetland area in drawing 200 is identified in the southeast portion of the site. And in this drawing, it's identified as a dry bed. So in one drawing, it calls it a wetland, next drawing is calling it a dry bed, and subsequent drawings call it a dry bed. This should be clarified and corrected. All regrading should be provided. Amount of fill, if any, should be brought to the site, should be provided. Any manifest for it should be there. They have drawing C400 is the septic plan. They should be reviewed and approved by Putnam County DOH. There are no town-related water or sewer at this facility. Access lanes should be identified to denote a traversable path to the intended septic location, so how you're going to get there to maintain it. Any existing DOH approvals for either lot should be submitted. The areas used for infiltration should be protected during construction. They should show silt fence and construction fencing on the drawing. Construction sequence should be provided on the drawing. Area of disturbance is identified as 30,000 square feet, and the SWIP uses 42,000. That should just be clarified. There should be a landscaping plan. There should be the right-of-ways provided, available site distance in the right-of-way. Slopes need to be defined, so we need a driveway profile. All utilities must be buried. Details for trenching must be provided. That's what I have.
Thank you, Rich. Pat, your comments and a summary of Mike's, please?
Actually, Mike, I'll do Mike's first. So Mike has been working with the applicant. This is a very complicated history with respect to this, so I'll try to summarize it from Mike's memo. The applicant's legalizing a subdivision that happened several years ago without his knowledge. The original parcel was illegally divided. The previous owner attempted to build on one of those lots. He was told to get more land. There was a merger on the property. The ZBA was involved at the time, told the owner to go back to divide, and divide the parcel legally through the planning board process, which that applicant, not this applicant, never did. Mike goes on, fast forward to recent, the taxes were not paid on both those parcels, and the county then acquired the property and sold it to the current owner. The county then merged the two parcels. So this subdivision that was originally illegally created went away when the county merged the properties and sold it to the current applicant. So what the applicant's doing is trying to recreate the original subdivision that was an illegal subdivision, but it was a subdivision nevertheless.
So there was 2 lots, legal, illegal.
So the,
County got a hold of property, made it into one. Now the applicant wants to put it back.
back to the way it
into-
originally
Okay,
was.
Thank you.
Variances are going to be required for this, so the process will require it going to the zoning board to get the variances. My only point with respect to this is he's recreating the original lots, which are unusually configured, but Joe just pointed out to me why I think that is, because the septic system for the right-hand lot is in that L-shaped portion in the back. So I think that's why he's recreating the lots as proposed. Otherwise, it would make more sense to just create 2 rectangles as opposed to an L-shaped lot. But I think that's the reason.
Yeah, and I'm just going off of the old survey on that, so I don't have any independent verification of that, but it appears that the septic system for the existing lot is at the rear of the applicant's lot.
Which is that L-shaped portion.
Okay. And, Pat, I believe you included your comments, right?
Yeah, that's basically the same issue.
So I think there's another time that I'd rather hear from the applicant before I open up to the board, if that's okay. Please introduce yourself and just give us an overview of what you're trying to do here.
Yeah, my name is Michael Skoka. I'm the owner of A&B Holdings, GCCM.
Speak into the microphone too, only for the people on the television. Thank you.
My name is Michael Skoka. I'm the owner of A&B Holdings, GCCM LLC, and I purchased the property in June of last year. When I purchased this property, I did my own due diligence. I went through the deed, went through everything in the county. Everything showed the property as 1 parcel, not 2. I got a quick claim deed from the county showing the properties were merged and buildable, signed by Mary Ellen Odell. So I kind of went through that before I purchased the property. In June of last year, after my closing, I met with Mike in his office. And he pulls out a folder from Tea Kettle, opens it up and says, "How'd this line get here?" I don't know. I really don't know how it got there. He goes, "Oh, there's something wrong with this, but I don't know what it is. I gotta refer that to the city attorney, Joe Charbonneau." I got an email back from Mike saying Joe Charbonneau didn't recognize the documents from the county, and everything the county gave me was kind of illegal, sort of. It was an illegal merger, which is put in writing in my title documents, okay? So it went, we're going on 8 months now, back and forth and back and forth. I really came here tonight based upon Mike's letter that he has no objection to the subdivision as it's legalizing an illegal subdivision that happened many years ago. That's all I thought I was coming here tonight for. But they made it sound like, get everything done and you'll get the building permit. What Mr. Cleary and what he read was not accurate at all. They're saying that I want to go back to the 2 lots. No. The 2 lots were merged by the county, and I became lot 17. that's what's on the tax map, that's what I've been paying taxes on, that's what the old owners have been paying taxes on. Oh, sorry. That's what I've been paying taxes on, the old owners have been paying taxes on. And it's not that we're looking to put it back to 2 lots, we're looking to get it from 2 lots to 1 lot.
I believe right now, if I'm hearing everybody correctly, that it is 1 lot now. Is that?
That was the next thing. Mike now says he's moving away from illegal subdivision and saying now you do have a lot. That's all we're here for. Because his question pertained to the back, southwest corner of the lot, which was a small line that he didn't know how it got there. So my architect, my engineer, constant contact with Mr. Franzetti and Mr. Carnazza, putting together this plan. And at 12 o'clock today, the night of the board meeting, I get a call from Rose. Oh, no, it's not gonna go through because there's questions now.
Well, I think what was meant by that, as one of the earlier applicants, there was, several pages of typewritten comments that, and it's not unusual at all, especially the first time in front of us, to be clarified. And then, like, it's happening early tonight, then you come back as they're clarified and we can make a decision. Unfortunately, Mike's not here.
But we're
Rich
not
has
here
several pages.
for anything other than the subdivision, which Mike clearly states, I have no objection to the subdivision as it is legalizing a legal subdivision that happened many years ago.
I'm confused. I thought I heard you said you're here just for 1 lot, and now I hear you saying you want a subdivision. Which is it?
You tell me. I would love for Mr. Charbonneau to tell me, because his email to Mike was, he's not recognizing the documents from the county. Documents, my title deed from the county shows
What,
1 lot.
put the county stuff aside, put all the discussions aside. What is it you are attempting to achieve?
I want the property merged according to the town's laws, because they're not recognizing my merged deed from the county. I paid the planning board $4,000 to merge the 2 lots into 1.
So you don't want a subdivided lot?
No, I want 1 lot.
And I'm under the impression, to your point, Barbara, that this is 1 lot right now. Joe, can you, you're more familiar with this than we, I believe, but can you shed any light on if it's 2 lots or 1 lot, or?
Let's see, it's not the final subdivision.
Mike and I went over this a while ago, and I discussed it with him. My understanding is that there was an illegal subdivision which was conducted by the prior owner, and then there was a failure to pay taxes with respect to that. There was a tax sale, and the 2 lots, I guess 17 and 18.1, were merged. And I'd have to go back and look at my notes with Mike, but,
7617
I'm sorry?
and 18.1.
I'm sorry?
7617 and 18.1.
Yeah, that's what I just said, 17 and 18.1. But, so this process is, and it's through no fault of this applicant, is an attempt to legalize that single lot into a building lot. That's all.
How much property is there? Is it .9?
0.9 acres.
0.98 acres?
0.9 acres.
Just about an acre, right?
Yeah.
So is there any concern, Joe, in terms of getting him where he wants to be?
I don't think so from a legal perspective, no. And that's what I conveyed to Mike.
I think,
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would say to that is the only way to correct this is by this subdivision process, which requires conforming to our subdivision regulations.
That's correct.
So there's nothing, you can't, because Mike said he doesn't have an objection, say it's okay. The only way you can authorize this is by granting the approval through the typical process. So there's-
Approval for
Excuse me,
what?
but how could you do that if you deny me this subdivision, and I went through
We were just talking about approving this.
24...
Hold on, hold on, wait, hold on,
Okay,
hold
I
on, hold on,
understand
hold on.
You want me to go one step ahead and get all this information to you when I don't even have my lot whole?
Okay, hold on, if you would.
Pat, can you finish your explanation?
Yeah. What I'm not understanding is, I'm not understanding where the word subdivision, I understand the past,
Right.
but where does the
So there's
subdivision
there's
come now?
Actually, 3 parcels, 2 merged. The third is this L-shaped subdivision parcel that we're
Okay.
talking about. So the question that you just heard is, for every subdivision must comply with our subdivision regulations. That involves what you would build on the property that is being adjusted by you. So call it an adjustment. But that's the typical requirement in our code. You have no authority to waive that requirement. The applicant submitted that material, which has some comments with respect to that, but he's provided the improvement plan, what he would build on that second lot. So we know it, that's what you would approve. And that's what you do for every lot line adjustment subdivision.
So the town of Carmel itself recognizes that piece as 3 parcels? Currently, right now, as we speak.
So ask him that question. So there's a question.
All right, I'm just trying to,
Nobody
Because
knows.
the legal status is murky.
I was talking to Rich, I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said.
so Joe, the town of Carmel considers this piece 3 parcels currently?
Correct.
Okay, so the process that we have to go through,
This is all new. Now
No, it's
3
not.
parcels?
This is, no. There are 3 parcels that are shown on the survey map. What he's looking to do is legalize 17 and 18.1. If you look at the survey that was attached to Mike's memo, you can draw a perfect square almost of the property in question, and then compare that to what Mike wrote.
Joe, when you say 17, legalized 17 and 18, are you talking
First,
about?
we'll slow down. You need the
legalized-
microphone first of all. And again, it's just for the people on TV.
And which drawing are you looking at there?
This is a site survey,
I know, but what's the number on the?
C100.
I have C200, I have A001. You pointed to 2 parcels that they were.
Yeah, so basically, this was the first one right here. This parcel was Bittner, and this line went around like this. It went all the way around. So Mike picked up this line and said, how did this line get here? And I said, I don't know. But my title map gave me this whole parcel right here. This was my parcel, and it's now lot 17. It came from lot 76.17 and 17.1. That's how you get to lot 17,
Which is that square?
which is this square right here. And
At some point before the county sold this for taxes, this lot was a U-shaped lot with the rectangular lot in the middle cut out. And then there was an attempt by the prior owner to merge that into what I have listed as lot 18.2. I don't know if that's the same as what they have on his map. And that died on the vine. They didn't go any further with that. They went to the ZBA, and then they didn't go any further, and then the lot itself went to taxes. So all this is a legalization of what he thought he purchased from the county, which is why Mike has said he has no objection,
this is what it looked like.
because he's righting a wrong, basically. Yeah, that's a good picture of it.
So, so are you planning then to put one residence on this lot?
Just one single-family home. On the entire lot, not just half of it, the whole lot.
The confusion here, by the way, is a lot of things that happened in the past we're trying to clear up.
Yeah, no, I know.
And this is the
This
first
is,
time.
believe me.
This is the first time this board has seen this,
Yeah, right.
right?
I understand.
So we're not against
righting a wrong or fixing what happened in the past.
Right.
Rightfully or wrongfully. It says here the applicant, the owner before you didn't pay their taxes, the county got involved, sold one of the parcels, so there's a lot of things we're trying to work our way through. I think at the end of the day, we could have a better building lot.
Well,
But we
you
need
know,
to sort
I
through
mean,
this a little
like,
bit.
just one more thing, and then I'll just wrap it up, but what I just want to get into the record is this, okay? This is a quitclaim deed from the county. In this quitclaim deed, signed in December of 2020, okay? This is when the prior owner that I bought it from the county. If the parcel being conveyed herein by the County of Putnam does not comply with local zoning ordinances and/or is not suitable for construction of conventional water and/or septic and is contiguous with a parcel owned by the party of the second part, the parcel described herein shall be automatically merged with said contiguous parcel, and the combined parcel shall thereafter be identified by the existing tax map of said continuous parcel, which I've been paying taxes on that continuous tax map. So if the county's merging the property, I'm thinking I got myself a whole lot, and I'm dealing with this now for 8 months, and it's just getting tiresome, really, I'll be honest with you. Just,
Did you get a title policy when you purchased the property?
yeah, I got it right here. You want to see it?
I'm
It's-
happy.
It's in record. It's on the
Yeah,
record.
I'll take a look at it. Not tonight, but I'll take a look at it.
Oh, okay.
So, my recommendation, unless there's any other questions from the board, would be,
And I'll get Mr. Franzetti's questions answered by my engineers away.
okay, I suggest you get Mr. Franzetti's comments on Monday from Rose. You talk to Rose about getting back on the next meeting's agenda, which is in 2 weeks, and I will, in parallel to that, speak to Rich, speak to Mike, email or see Pat,
Okay,
try to weed through all this,
okay.
and I'll do the same thing. I'll come into town and meet with the folks.
Is there any way I can go for the variance at least and get that done? I'm sure.
I'm not sure
I
what
already
we're
did.
variancing right now, Pat, you know, like,
I already did all the
So
paperwork.
the question about whether this was the right configuration of the lot has been sort of put aside, so nothing would change. So it would be premature to do that, but in this case,
where would the variance be again?
I think it needs
The 23rd, they got me, she has me scheduled for the 23rd already. And I got the board in my trailer, so,
And what's the variances you need?
a lot of area.
lot area.
How much, large variance?
So that wouldn't change, so
I'm not.
It would be conditional upon what this
Yeah.
board
it would
deems.
be. So I don't
So,
think there's a
I
problem.
think that, as Anthony said, be conditional, if we can speed things up a little bit or do
Oh,
a
that would be
couple of things in
awesome.
parallel.
That'd be great.
And you can tell Rose, Pat's gonna see Rose on Monday, I'm sure, but you can
Okay.
tell Rose that we said you can be scheduled for the zoning board.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You know, and hopefully you sort through that, and hopefully we can help you sort through this.
Okay.
You're just cleaning
I
up.
know, it's pretty confusing, believe me.
So,
If anybody first heard it, they won't believe it.
Give Rose a call on Monday, stop into the office, schedule some time with Rich, with Mike,
Yep.
okay?
All right, thank you so much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Joe Zackin, 14 Nicole Way. Bond reduction is also a public hearing. Rich, I don't believe you had any comments on this, did you?
I'm the only one who had comments on it.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, 'cause the bond return.
It's a bond reduction. So the applicant made the request. The original bond amount was $242,000. The bond has not previously been reduced. Engineering department performed numerous site visits over the course of construction, the most recent being on February 16th. Based on the inspection, the performance bond identified in the applicant's request are completed, and the bond can be reduced to $98,000.
And Pat, no comments from you and no comments from Mike, I believe. Before I turn it over to boards, anyone from the public wish to be heard on this? Good evening, Joe. Any comments here?
Mr. Chairman, being there's no public comment, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I know I always tell you what a nice job you did. I drove around the neighborhood a little bit, looking from back, and it really did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you have to vote on
Oh, you need to also vote on the bond reduction.
Right.
I'll make a motion to vote on the bond reduction
From $242,000
to
to $98,000.
$98,000.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
You made the motion to close the public hearing, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, next on the agenda, public hearing is Pulte Homes of New York LLC, Lot 4, Terrace Drive, also for a public hearing and the bond return. Please note, this is for Lot 4. Good evening.
Good evening.
Rich?
So the applicant in January of 2023 requested the bond for the reference project be released. The original bond for the project was $4,196,105. The bond was reduced in 2012 to $839,220.90, 20% of the original bond. The Town of Carmel Engineering Department has performed numerous site visits, with the most recent being in January 2023. The board should note that the applicant in their letter indicates they believe that the punch list items were done. The town provided the I don't know why that's even in there, but they have been addressed, the deficiencies. We met with the representative on February 1st, 2023, to review areas noted in the prior memo. It was determined that caulking was needed in certain areas. A site inspection was performed on February 9th to determine if the areas in question were completed, and based on the inspection, they are completed and the bond can be returned. And you were with us, you were with me on the site visit, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone from the audience wish to be heard on this application?
Anyone? Mr. Chairman, being there's no public comment, I'd like to make a motion to close this public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to recommend the bond return to the applicant.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Bond return as specified by Rich. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is Pulte Homes of New York, Lot 5, Terrace Drive, public hearing and bond return. Rich?
Similar to the prior memo, the applicant in January requested the bond for the reference be released. The original bond for this particular Lot 5 was $872,660.75. It has not been reduced in the past. Performed numerous site visits starting in April of 2018 all the way up until January of 2023. We met with representatives on February 1st to review the areas noted in prior memoranda. It was determined that the walking path needed to be repaired in certain areas. A site inspection was performed on February 9th to determine if they were completed. At that time, they were not, but a site inspection was then, but the applicant noted that on February 10th, the repairs were then made. Site inspection was performed on February 15th, and based on the inspection, they are completed and the bond can be returned. And again, Mr. Chairman, you were on the site visit with me originally, and we've walked that site together, so.
Anyone from the audience wish to be heard on this? You have to come up here, state your name, and speak into the microphone, please.
Hello, Michelle McCabe from 17 Crosby Road in Carmel, New York. My lot is right behind the Terrace Drive, so I'm not sure if this is maybe a question for you, Mr. Franzetti, if this is relevant to where I live.
These particular lots are not. It's either Lot 3 or Terrace Drive, or either the two. The Lot 3 one has been returned, but Terrace Drive has not been returned.
So the main building is which lot then?
I'd have to ask Paul. Paul, that's Lot 3, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. The biggest condo building?
Yes, that's on Lot 3.
Okay. So the lot 3 has already been returned?
That bond was voted on 2 weeks ago to be returned.
Okay.
And it's in front of the town board right now.
Okay, can I make a comment then about that?
Sure.
Yeah? So my property backs up right to that lot in particular. I sent some memo this morning to Rose because that's what I'm reacting to, what I got in the mail. I did not get something in the mail 2 weeks ago. Just for your awareness, there is no privacy between my property and that big building. I suffer actually from this lack of privacy. There are no trees, there have been no landscaping. I was here 2021 to voice my concerns about this. Nothing has been done since. So I have video that I can share with you. I sent her pictures this afternoon. I'm majorly concerned that nothing has been done there.
So Paul, when you come up the hill, you have there are condos or the main one building there, right? Is that the building that?
When you get to the top of the hill, Terrace Drive, you have the two stop signs. You would make the left, and then you're on to Lot 3, and you would drive through towards Crosby. You would drive through to Crosby. The large 3-story building is in that location. And then I think there's adjacent to that is a greenhouse and a garden area.
Did the plans originally call for landscaping there?
I don't remember.
I did see some landscaping when I went to go see the report in 2021. I've been voicing my concerns since 2018 to Mr. Franzetti that there was no landscaping put there between that giant building, the greenhouse, and my property. There's no trees, not one tree.
I just don't know if the design of the building
We'd have to go back to the.
called for that. Can we do that? And you sent the letter to Rose about this?
Yes, in 2021, you asked me for pictures, which I also sent, and I sent them a letter. I did not hear back from Pulte on this.
So this is, will be going in front of the town board, correct? So-
That's Lot 3 that's in front of the town
Right,
board right now,
which is
correct.
what this is part of.
Yeah.
Correct.
So you can email your concerns to Rose and to the town board,
Okay,
so they get a chance to see that. But I think we need to research what was supposed to be there.
We can catch up through Mike and Rich's office, that concern with relation to what the plans propose.
And then we could
can
relay
get
that to the town
information
board.
okay.
I mean, if the design was bare, it was bare. If the design was trees and they never planted them, that gives us some leverage, like Anthony said.
Okay.
Anything else? Tom?
Just one question. Let's assume the plans actually had something in there about landscaping, and it's not there now. This is in front of the town board now, so the town board would have to react to it. Is there anything that would be in front of us where we would react?
No, if the landscaping plan called for 50 evergreen trees, they're not there. Those 50 evergreen trees have to be planted, or the money of those 50 evergreen trees retained from the performance bond.
And so that's a town board issue at this point?
That's a town board resolution.
Resolution, okay.
Do we know if this is on the agenda for the next town board meeting?
We can find out.
I don't know when it's on.
It is? So you may want to, in addition to contacting them, you may want to show up for that meeting. There is a public comment session.
Sorry, Michael Crusoe for Pulte. It's on 3/15 in the town board.
All right, so March 15th.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I still think we could probably close the public hearing. That's not.
This public hearing, it doesn't
This
pertain
is
to
different.
that.
lot.
Yeah, we're
Exactly.
done.
So if there's no other
Trees already
comments,
closed, yeah.
then we would proceed with closing
Exactly.
it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on Lot 5?
And Mr. Chairman, is there no other public comments? I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion to return bond?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to return the bond.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Glenacom Lake Cell Tower, Walton Drive. I don't believe that, Mike didn't have any comments, Pat, no comments, and Rich?
No, Mr. Chairman, and there was material that was submitted by the applicant today, but I don't think any of us had an opportunity to review that material.
No. Rich, any comments on this?
Just the same, it's the same memo I provided at the last meeting, so this was here for a public hearing, So they still have some issues to address, but nothing that can't be addressed if they're going to move forward with it.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This
Thank
is-
you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Robert Gaudioso with the law firm of Snyder and Snyder on behalf of the applicants, Verizon Wireless and Homeland Towers.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wish to be heard on this application? Please, first row, blue shirt.
Edward Nieves. I live on Tea Kettle Spout Road. And just wondering about one of the concerns with the cell tower. And it's mostly, if you think about computers, you got to change them and update them pretty fast and frequently. And the rules that pretty much lie by the FCC and ISNIRP, which are regulating committees, the proposals that they made was based on evidence from 1980, which was way before these fast and cell tower usage in a certain area. So when they set the rules, they also set it up for it to be in a certain area. Well, with recent evidence, pretty much there was a scientific paper that came out in 2020, which has been cited by over 150 publications, and pretty much stating that those regulations that they provided at that time are not applicable to what is being used today. And there's another paper that pretty much came out in 2022 and has already been cited by two publications. And again, they go into scientific information step by step on each of the assumptions that were made in that beginning time point for that regulation. So pretty much the summary would be indicating, what do you want the town to be? Is it going to be residential or is it going to be more commercialism? And the reason why is because it does have health effects on the people that live in the community. So that is a decision that you have to consider. I'm happy to share the two publications with you so that you could look at and you could decide further. But having rules and then having something more powerful to be there and then wanting to have people to live by, close to it, then that's something really to consider. And the effects are not something that you could just ignore. Pretty much sterilization, okay, it affects the sperm, tumors on the brain, it affects also other types of tissues. So these are the things and that, you just want to consider. And if you think about radiation, think about what sometimes elderly communities do. They like to send out a signal. Why do they do that? To make sure all the young ones don't hang around. Because the young ones can hear it, the old ones cannot. And that's what radio frequency is. Sound waves, all these type of things. They're not just something you take for granted, you see. So just look into the information before you make your final decision, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, not to interrupt what the gentleman said, but this is an area that this board unfortunately is preempted by federal law from considering. So the public needs to understand that the Federal Telecommunications Act has taken this board's autonomy away with respect to certain issues, this being one of them.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm sure Mr. Gaudioso will discuss that as well.
Thanks, Joe. Anyone else wish to be heard? Please. State your name, please.
Linda Shaw, 53 Walton. I need to know how you're going to manage turning my home basically into a construction site at the end of the road where there's no turnaround area. How are you going to do that?
I would defer to Mr. Gaudioso on that, if he could speak to that.
So, Mr. Chairman, there was a submission made by Mr. Gaudioso today, and I believe that I went through it very quickly, but I believe that there's information in there regarding the staging issues.
The question was how you're going to manage the construction at the end of the road there.
Sure, so what we submitted was both revised plans and a letter from our engineer detailing that the staging would all be on the proposed property, not on Walton Drive. That would include the crane, any of the staging materials, and so forth and so on, and we included that in the materials.
I don't believe anyone's got a chance to read that yet, but
Sure.
thank you.
No construction vehicles would come in from that? Like, what kind of construction traffic would be?
So the construction vehicles would use Walton Drive, as it's a public road, come onto the property, and then they would be all staged on the property. They would not be staged on Walton Drive.
And how would those construction vehicles be parking?
I'm sorry?
How would they be parking, the construction vehicles?
On the property.
There'll be enough room on the property?
Yes, we've detailed that on the plans.
Anyone else? You can, please. Yeah, you can come back up.
Since I don't have that in front of me, can you just tell me?
Please speak into the microphone, just so,
How are the vehicles going to turn around? Because you can't use my driveway, it's my property.
Mr. Chairman, I would just remind the public to direct the comments to the planning board and not to the applicant.
I agree, Joe. Yeah.
Sure, so if you recall, the plan is that we'll come in and we'll create the access drive, which will include the construction entrance. There'll be an area where the compound will be, which will be flattened out, as will the construction drive, which will come in. The proposed construction drive and the driveway all meet the town code. We previously made those changes. That was back in January. What we've shown on the plan is then the location for the proposed crane. That crane will be located. We submitted a letter from our crane company that that location will be appropriate. Once the stacking of the tower is done, then the crane will be removed. All of the vehicles that will need to be brought in for the facility itself, including the pieces of the tower, they would also have been shown on the plans, will also be on the property. They'll be pulled straight in and off of Walton Drive. So there's plenty of room based on the proposed grading and construction as confirmed by both our engineer and our crane company.
Thank you. Other people wish to be heard on this applicant tonight?
Hi, my name is Evangelia LeClaire. I live on Glenacom Road, right across from Glenacom Lake. Walk there every morning, every day. I have 2 kids, really young. I'm really concerned from an environmental perspective as well as from a health perspective and from a residential perspective to have a 140-foot tower right in view of my property, my home, and not only mine, but my neighbors and this town's property. It's very, very upsetting to me. It's also very upsetting that the notice really only came about 2 weeks ago. And yes, I'm sure Mahopac Moms has been talking about this for the last couple years, but as a mom, as someone who's enjoyed this community for the last 9 years, I'm really, really disturbed that this community is now going to be appropriating a commercial tower.
Anyone else wish to be heard on this? Please.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Chairperson and board members. Thank you for giving us that opportunity to be heard tonight. As the previous lady said, it has been a long time that this experience has been going on. And
Identify your name and address, please.
Rosemary Lee, 43 Walton Drive, my family. We submitted some materials to you through Rose. I wanted to also say that we greatly appreciate Rose Trombetta and also at the zoning board with their help in helping us get our information through to you, and appreciate the fact that you're reviewing all our comments. So we brought along, first of all, the proximity issue here, which shows the many families that are impacted by this project on Walton Drive, as I'm sure you've seen, and the proximity of all these homes to the actual site of the project. And it has taken some time to examine all of the factors, including the wooded area that's been there. There has been some confusion about exactly what the project was going to entail, but tonight, there are impacts on the residents and the residential community, as was said earlier. Walton Drive and the surrounding area are a quiet neighborhood, a family neighborhood, and they're a residential middle-income home, safe for children, and the residents there are long-term, and plus some new families. This is a neighborhood character with the surrounding forest and small lakes. The street is a dead end with little outside traffic. Many residents work more than one job and spend precious time outdoors enjoying their home. They have installed improvements to enhance the property and grounds and increase the value of the residential homes and neighborhood. I did forward to you the statement and the research that shows that some of these homes could lose as much as $100,000 in value with the site, as people have said, in looking at the cell tower, or even in the residential area of the cell tower. The view shed from this commercial industrial project will be destroyed as the applicant plans to clear cut something like 50 trees adjoining the neighborhood properties within close proximity. The variances in height, setbacks, and fencing clearly are not permitted under zoning regulations, which are protective of residential communities and the neighborhood character. We also looked at your master plan. And throughout your master plan, there are many, many comments about the protection of the environment, the watersheds, the forests, and the character of the residential community. And that was an excellent plan because it was well thought out. What you want, what is the vision for your town? The property values of the community, as I mentioned, could decline dramatically. This massive commercial industrial utility project does not meet the standards for a least intrusive siting, and the applicant has not done the due diligence to offer a reasonable alternative or locate an alternative site, in spite of being requested to look at an alternative site by the zoning board, and I believe also your board. There was comment that there were no other alternatives, and this was the only site which was available, and that is not true. There were other sites discussed from the community on Maple Hill, not just the one. And there could be other sites utilized. So there is no alternative site. Basically, 3 years have gone by. The submission is basically the same. And I think the applicant is looking at, you know, I'm on third base here. All this material I already did, I already invested in. There's no really reason for us to cooperate with the community. I haven't seen that cooperation. It's just my way or the highway. And they think they're going to get a home run because they're on third base right now. The baseball analogy. So I don't believe that's going to happen because the community is too aware and concerned about this project. So the documents contained are 3 years old, and the residents here did not have a chance to view any balloon test, and the photographs do not represent the visual impact on the immediate homes on Walton Drive in proximity to the tower. This project is going to bring commercial lighting, a generator, long months of construction vehicles, and the clear cutting and removal of the trees. Soil and foundation work and traffic will bring them to the community, and the residents' right to their peaceful enjoyment of their properties will be violated. The community character of this neighborhood will be destroyed. It's substantial by any measure. The planning board has just begun to review and ask the questions, which we appreciate. The forested area will be, the attending benefits in air quality, moderation of temperatures, absorption of water, and flood prevention will be severely impacted, as well as the visibility of a tower of 450 feet, as well as the whole complex. If you've gone up to Walton Drive, you've seen that elevation of over 700 feet is like another planet. When you get up there, the whole environment changes. You have high winds, you have fog. It's very, very different. So cutting those trees down is going to increase a lot of environmental impact, such as wind damage, because it really comes very fiercely up the hill. These services look like they might primarily benefit the town of Summers residents rather than Carmel Mahopac, as it is exactly on the border. The local residents in this zip code, and they've testified that they have no problem with the coverages, including 4G and 5G services, because this is what's been presented by Verizon as what they're receiving, and they're not having any problem. We also understand that the emergency services are not having any problem. So there are other comments here about looking at the full environmental assessment form, the survey and documentation of the property that was agreed to be leased from Maple Hill Estates, and the documentation about the final subdivision. And we believe that Maple Hill, when it was established, we have residents that stated that the area around Maple Hill was supposed to be kept wooded, not developed in this fashion. So If that were the case, then this would not be acceptable. Tea Kettle Lake, which people are talking about tonight, is suffering from runoff and algal growth, and it remains unknown the impact of a severe storm might have on the stormwater capture as proposed by the SWP plan, and what impact will the removal of empty trees and the stormwater and rainfall capture have on the steep slopes, which will result in contaminants draining into the lake and surrounding streams. There shows 1 acre of disturbance, about 20,540 square feet of disturbance during construction activity. We are now experiencing severe storms and intense rainfall due to climate changes, and there aren't any guarantees that this system will prevent flooding. This plan also allows storage of petroleum products to fuel vehicles on the site, as well as oils and concrete and asphalt, as well as fertilizer. Concrete trucks will be permitted to wash out or discharge surplus concrete or wash water at locations on the site, and none of this should be allowed in a steep slope residential area. The application has not flagged the proposed construction site properly. The applicant has not conducted due diligence to find an alternate location. 3 years ago, during the height of COVID, so many of these people didn't know this project was happening because of that problem. The owners and residents have changed in that time, and some people might be willing to discuss an alternate site. Regarding the monopole cell tower foundation, the plan calls for temporary removal of 6,300 cubic feet of soil, or 223 cubic yards, 20 truckloads, assuming off-site storage. I hear that there's a change. By the way, wouldn't it have been appropriate for us, or attending the public hearing, to have a copy of what was submitted tonight? That was not on the agenda as of the few hours ago that we looked at it, whatever was submitted. So we're asking to see those documents that we are told were submitted, which we have not seen. Approximately 4,500 cubic feet, 90 cubic yards, 10 truckloads will be need to be replaced above the concrete pad. This will result in a minimum of 30 truckloads of soil moving on and off the site and on local streets during just this phase of construction. We're talking about a huge impact in the community, all up on Keora and Walton. The concrete pad will require 2,300 square cubic feet, or 85 yards of concrete, and this is 8 loads of concrete. A large volume of soil will also be placed as fill in order to level the site. The applicant does not specify the amount of soil to be placed as fill. So we request that the following case law, which I've submitted to you previously, be taken into consideration when you're reviewing the applicants. And we, as neighbors and community members, we do appreciate the planning board's diligence in reviewing this application, which proposes enduring impacts and precedents to residential communities in the town of Carmel. And we thank you for the time that you're spending. I have these packages for each of you with additional supplemental material, and you would accept that. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Anyone else wish to be, please?
Good evening, Rob Cavallaro, 49 Walton Drive, Mahopac, New York. How you guys doing tonight? I just wanted to say thank you to the zoning board and the planning board, Dawn and Rose, for all the transparency that you guys have, dished out to us over the last month and a half. Myself, with all the, the neighborhood, the community, we all really appreciate everything you guys have done and looked at all the different perspectives and all the different views. I still have just one really big question to ask, and that it always comes down to that construction question. I guess, I guess the plans say that there's going to be a staging area beyond Walton Drive, so the Walton Drive ends, and then all of a sudden, the construction area starts, right? That's where all the trucks are going to be, the trailers, all that kind of stuff. My thing is, about two zoning meetings ago, somebody had mentioned that there was going to be 335 commercial dump trucks, or dump loads rather, that need to be dumped into that area in order to kind of like level the grading and all that stuff. So that's 335 truckloads of commercial trucks. Now these trucks are about 16 to 18 feet long in length. My question is there anywhere in the plans where it says that one of these huge dump trucks is going to kind of like pop a U-turn up Summit Circle and then back down Walton Drive and then do their dumping back there? Like, I feel like the dumping is going to be of the grade. It's going to be done on Walton Drive and not actually on the staging area, right? So let's just say hypothetically that this truck is backing down all the way down Walton Drive and then backing down into the grade to dump 335 truckloads of dirt. I just need to know if that dumping is going to happen on the staging area or if it's happening actually on Walton Drive, literally next to two of my neighbors. So that's question number one. The other question I have is, what happens if that truck doesn't pop that U-turn up Summit Circle and drive straight down Walton Drive, right? Are they going to pull into the staging area and then back the truck into the area where the dirt has to go? And then what happens if that truck did pull straight into Walton Drive? Is that truck now, when he has to exit, he's going to back out of Walton Drive? Is there a turnaround in the staging area, right, for a 16 to 18 foot commercial dump truck to do that? So I really think it's important that we iron out these details, because a couple of weeks ago there were 3 vehicles from Homeland Towers that went into the property to look and review and whatever. And those 3 SUVs, actually it was 2 SUVs and 1 sedan, they actually had a tough time trying to turn around on that street, when we observe them in the woods, because we see everything on our road, right? Anybody who comes down, the little ring doorbell's going off, somebody's in front of your house, because we don't have any activity on that road. It's a dead end. But as soon as my little ring goes off, I know it's 99% of the time it has something to do with the cell phone tower. So they had a tough time turning around on that dead end. Like, they're backing up into my driveway or my neighbor PJ's driveway, and because they can't exit. So I just want to know how a 16 to 18 foot commercial dump truck, 335 loads, is going to be able to do that. I think we really need to take a look at that, because that's super, super important. I appreciate all your work, and have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Guardioso, would you like to respond if you have the information with you?
Sure. So there were a number of comments that I'll respond to, and I'll try and take them in order. The stormwater, we've submitted a full stormwater pollution prevention plan. It's been reviewed by the town engineer, so there are no stormwater impacts. As far as the plantings, I think the number as far as the tree removal was incorrect. The actual number is 36, and we've shown on the plans that we're going to replace all 36 trees. As far as alternative locations, we've submitted numerous different alternative site analyses, both from our RF engineer and from Mr. Klaus Wimmer. We've been through that in the past. That's all part of the package. I haven't heard one single alternative that's been suggested that we haven't looked at. So if there is an alternative that we haven't looked at and that someone believes is feasible, we'd like to hear that.
That's actually one of my questions is, I think I mentioned this last meeting, but what I'm having a hard time with, to be honest with you, is 65 acres of land, between 60 and 70 acres of land there.
66.7, I believe.
And we're putting a cell tower 140 foot from someone's house, and all that acreage is not a better resolution for the community?
There's not. So what we did is we submitted another report. You probably haven't taken a look at it yet.
No.
The location in and around the condos, I think it was your comment last time that it was somehow not neighborly for the condos to place it on this part of the property back towards the back of the property near the power line towers. But if you look at the other areas with the condominiums, there's residential houses all in those locations as well, directly adjacent to them.
Yeah.
So moving it over there moves it from one neighborhood to the other.
It's just when I'm having a hard, and I've driven through there and walked through there. And
So you've seen the houses that surround the other part of the condos. That's all residential as well.
I just have a hard time with the 66 acres of land.
And you've seen the topography. So the other thing we submitted, we showed the topography, we showed the distance.
Yeah.
We talked about the access drive. It's 1,100 feet. It's a 200-foot
I think
grade change in that direction.
We build bridges, we build tunnels. The topography doesn't necessarily scare me personally. I think
Well,
things that we,
it's
it's a cost.
I find, no, it's not that. So, look, I find it ironic that the first set of comments were, we're creating too much disturbance. That was the first set of the town planner's comments, that we were creating too much disturbance. So, we can't have it both ways. We have to minimize the amount of disturbance, and we're hearing about tree clearing and concerns about tree clearing. So, we can't have it both ways. We've picked a spot that we believe is the least intrusive location, given the topography, given the needs from an RF standpoint, given the surrounding uses, including the power line towers at the back end of the property. So, I think our
Question about
I
that.
think our record stands for itself as far as that goes.
Question about that. Did Homeland negotiate any other alternative locations with Maple, the condominium complex?
We don't have any right to go anyplace else on that
Did
property.
you negotiate?
When you say negotiate, what do you mean?
Well, did the Maple Hill Board of Directors give you, discuss two sites with you? Site A and Site B?
When you say discuss, what do you mean by discuss?
When you negotiated with them?
You want to answer this?
Manny Vicente, President of Homeland Towers, good evening. So when we looked at the site, the first thing we look at is where is the site going to work? And as Rob said, there's a 200-foot elevation change on average from where the waterworks are by the condos down there and where Walton Drive is in that area. 200 feet and about 1,000-foot to 1,100-foot a distance. That makes a grade greater than 20% to try and drive any road up there. If we were to locate down there, then we have to compensate for that difference with the height and tower.
I'm asking, I understand
But
what you've
I'm
been saying.
answering your question.
No, you're
So-
not.
Yes, I am.
I'm asking whether a negotiation occurred with Maple Hill condominiums for two sites rather than just one. Simple yes or
No, there
no.
was no negotiation for two sites because there wasn't a second area that was feasible for the site to work, and that's what I was trying to explain to you. At 200-foot elevation difference, if we were to build a site down there, it would have to be well over 200 feet, which would then require lighting and marking for FAA. So it's not really feasible. Plus, as Rob said, this whole area is a residential area. There's many residences down there in that area as well. So when we say this is the best location on the property, I wish there was a location that was thousands of feet away from people. I really do. I really do. Because it would make my job a lot easier. I don't enjoy, difficult applications like this. But if there were an easier place on the property to go to that work, we'd be there. And I think we demonstrated that in this last round of submission, which you haven't had an opportunity to look at yet. I really want you to look at that, because not only did we look at the area to see what other properties were feasible, all right, and we've documented that well now more than once, but we looked at this property and what would work. And I want you to take a look at that, because I don't want, if my job could be made a lot easier, if your job could be made a lot easier, I would do that. Unfortunately, we find ourselves where we are.
Could you explain this document then to me? I'll read it into the record. Whereas Homeland Towers has proposed two sites, Site A and B, on common grounds for this purpose.
That was the other spot, right where we are.
So when we were discussing the area of Walton Drive, this is where we were discussing where on that area would we lease the facility. So it's in the same general area. Just like where we talked about the alternatives going down the hill and what that would mean for tree clearing, disturbance, et cetera, that's what this was addressing.
So where was, I assume what you're applying for is referenced in there as Site A, is that correct?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so where is Site A and where is Site B?
They would be within 50 feet or so of each other. It was generally similar to what we showed you as the different options for this area, for the facility. That's the general area we're talking about.
One of the things we were trying to avoid during that initial analysis was the wetlands. So if you notice on the plans, we stayed just out of the wetland buffer.
So you're saying one of those properties is in wetlands?
I know when the discussions were going on that we were trying to find a location that ultimately would be out of the wetlands. I don't remember from 3 or 4 years ago exactly which was A or B, or which one, where exactly it was in relation to those wetlands. We hadn't had it fully surveyed or delineated yet.
When we go to lease a property, because of things like buildability, setback, wetlands, et cetera, we need to have options of going 50 feet here, 50 feet there, maybe 100 feet there. That's what we're talking about. At no time did we ever discuss with the condo any other area than the general area that we're working in and where the site is.
And do we know whether this 50 or 100-foot difference would make a difference to the people on Walton Drive?
No, I don't think it would. And the reason I don't think it would is because we actually had these conversations with people on Walton Drive. When we were trying to settle the litigation, we went out and met with a number of folks, and we discussed pushing it back on the property into the wetland area with the understanding that we would need wetland permits. And that was rejected during the settlement discussions while we were trying to resolve this. So even going further back on the property into the wetland area was not acceptable at that time, which is why we never pursued that location. So if I can just finish with my other responses. There'll be no dumping on Walton Drive. I know there was some comments. I think the calculations and the numbers were inaccurate, but there'll be no dumping on Walton Drive. And as far as the materials, we did ask for copies of all the materials. I heard of a number of materials tonight that have been submitted. We'd respectfully request copies of those materials as well as the materials that were presented this
Just see
evening
Rose.
and handed up. So.
Excuse me, what about the concern about turning dump trucks around?
That'll all be done inside the property.
So they're gonna, will the trucks be driving down Walton Drive, driving into the site, turning, dumping, and driving out?
Correct.
Yeah, so
So no
there's-
backing up and down the street?
Correct.
So there's an existing entry drive right now. The site is in the middle of that entry drive, so the trucks are gonna go in and back into the dump area, dump, and then turn around right in there. So it's like a T. Imagine the existing drive, and then the construction area will create a T for them to dump their materials and drive out. They're not gonna be turning, and it's probably much more efficient to do that anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to be heard tonight? Please.
Good evening, Brian Miller, Kiora Boulevard. I live in the Walton area neighborhood. And there's been many talks about this 140-foot cell phone tower, merely 174 feet away from houses. As there was this, bear with me. This lady put up this demonstrative, I believe the pink sticky is about where the tower is going to be, about 174 feet away from the nearest house. This is a residential neighborhood. This isn't a commercial neighborhood where all other cell phone towers have been put in Mahopac. This is a Category 5 cell phone tower location. Verizon has come here, told us there were other alternatives. We wrote letters. We didn't get a response back. We got a response back from Maple Hill Estates, and we stopped looking. If we make this Category 5 an actual cell phone tower, it becomes a Category 2. That gives it precedence for when they want to put residential cell phone towers in residential neighborhoods, your neighborhood, anybody else's neighborhood in Mahopac. This becomes a Category 2 and sets precedent for future cell phone towers in Mahopac. They submitted a submission today, which yourselves haven't had an opportunity to review. We haven't had an opportunity to review, and we're here at a public hearing. I do ask that you hold a second public hearing so everybody could have an opportunity to review whatever the submission this is and comment further.
Maybe some of it clarifies some questions people have had here. Maybe it raises more questions. But it would be disingenuous not to allow people to respond to whatever this new submission is that nobody in the room has had an opportunity to review. But I did review their first submission. And there was many testimony. People stood up here in front of the zoning board a few weeks ago, because one of the big concerns they said is there's bad cell service in this area. And everybody here in this room got up here, and maybe they lost because they realize they don't realize you're a different board than the zoning board. We have excellent cell phone service in this neighborhood. Excellent cell phone service. During the height of COVID, when everybody's on their cell phone data was through the roof. I walked through this neighborhood, drove through this neighborhood, worked remotely. I'm on my phone nonstop. I do have Verizon cell phone service. Never had an issue. Cell service is so good, I got rid of my house phone. My wife is in law enforcement. She has to be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it varies throughout the year. We don't need a house phone because she has excellent cell phone service. And I've heard Verizon get up here, well, we did a drive-through. I drive through these neighborhoods. There are times I'm on the phone with the client driving home, and I can't pull in the driveway because the kids are going to see me come running out and want me to play. So I just meander through the neighborhood on my car. Never had a drop cell-service call ever. I heard that Verizon needs this because the public utilities, the fire, the ambulance, whatever, may need service here. I've seen ambulance, I've seen fire trucks, we've never had an issue. In fact, the fire chief lives in my neighborhood. Never had a problem calling him on his cell phone, never had a problem getting to him. When I had an emergency in my house, called the fire chief directly. He was there in 5 minutes. No cell phone service issues whatsoever, no drop calls. There is good service. But what Verizon's submission is it's not that Mahopac doesn't have great service. If you look at their page 14 of 37 map, great green service. What their objective is, on page 10 of their submission, is to cover Lake Lincolndale. We're not Lake Lincolndale. That's Westchester County. If they need a cell phone tower in Lake Lincolndale because they have a little dead zone there, let them put a tower in there. But why are we as Mahopac putting the burden on our backs and putting the cell phone tower 174 feet from these people's houses because Lake Lincolndale doesn't want to put a cell phone tower in their neighborhood? Again, you represent us here in Mahopac, not the Westchester residents, not the ones that live in Somers. They submit some pictures of what the tower may look like. And Mr. Guadioso stood up here a couple meetings ago, says the tower, it's just above the tree lines. The tree lines in his submission say the tree lines are at 70 feet. This tower is 140 feet. It's a little more than just above the tree lines. It's double the tree lines. And then I was looking at this one projection. It's called VP 17. I don't know whose house this is. It's about a block or two away from the tower. And you could see it dead right there. I'm assuming there's a window on this house because there's one on this side. You just look out and there's a cell phone tower right there. That's not a residential look. They're not worried about the community, the neighbors. They keep talking about, oh, we're only going to cut down 36 trees. Trees grow back. I could care less about trees. I care about the people. I care about the residential look. I care about Mahopac and them using this as a linchpin to then put the next residential cell phone tower and the next residential cell phone tower, because you've turned what is a Category 5 because they don't want to do their due diligence and follow up on the other alternative zones where they said, we sent the letter, we never got a response. They're setting you up so that way, if you approve this, you're forced to approve the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Next thing you know, Mahopac is just cell phone tower city. We're a small, little, residential, community mom-and-pop neighborhood. We have great cell phone service here. They want to put this tower here right on the lines, the Westchester border, and say, oh, well, we tried to put it, we're putting it by the power lines. I pose to you that this is hundreds of feet away from the power lines and only 174 feet away from somebody's bedroom window. We don't need this cell phone tower. We have great cell phone service in this area. The only reason they want to put this here is because it says in their submissions,
Their goal objective is to cover Lake Lincolndale. So think about that when you guys decide to vote, who you represent, and make that vote accordingly. Thank you.
If I can just correct a couple statements. There are other cell towers in Carmel in residential zones. We've pointed those out. They're also in the town of Zomers in residential zones. There's one right over the border in a residential zone. The areas of coverage are in both Somers and Carmel. So the statement that this is only going to cover Lake Lincolndale is completely false. That's in the maps. The statements of people who have service, if you look where they said they had service, they're in locations on our maps where we show there is service. There are high points where there is service, of course. There are low points where there's not service. Putting a facility in this location does not create a precedent for every other location. That's just simply not a correct legal standard. As far as the letters we sent, the letters that we sent were in the residential zones. We showed in the non-residential zones the technical reasons why we couldn't go there. The places where we sent the letters where we didn't get responses were other residential areas. So that's very important. And finally, we did show the photograph, I think you had pointed out from Summit Circle, the photograph that he just referred to. If you go up to Summit Circle, we submitted a photograph anyway. The point is you can see those power lines right from that location as well. So those power lines are there, they just are. As well as the tower up on the hill here on Crest. You can see that from Walton Drive very clearly from most of the town of Carmel. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to be heard? Please. Please state your name.
My name is Annette Ramito, and I live right on Teakettle Spout Lake. And I had sent a note to Rose in January, and I mentioned the pros for the tech company, and the most of it is cons for us residents. I'm here almost 48 years in Mahopac. I raised my children. They skated on the lake. They fished on the lake. We even swam on the lake at one point. But a cell tower, maybe in Carmel in a residential area, it may be in Somers in a residential area, but is it 100 feet from somebody's driveway? I drive up that street, you can barely fit 2 cars going in that direction. You know, one going in, one coming out. It's such a narrow street. There are studies being done there, but nobody wants to say that a cell phone tower emissions radiation. The studies are, they're fog. It's too soon. They don't have enough evidence. The planning board last week, 2 weeks ago, said there wasn't enough evidence. And I still believe there's no evidence. The evidence I see in this whole business case is a win-win for Verizon and Homeland Towers. Number one, they're going to increase their customer usage. Number two other vendors are going to tag on that tower, bringing them more income. And who's going to suffer? Us residents within 1,000 feet. How are we going to resell our homes? And my neighbor just moved in, and I had to tell him where he just bought the house this year, and I told him that there's a cell tower going up across the lake from us. Well, he's devastated. He's putting all this money into his house, renovating it. And when we go to sell, there's going to be a 15 to 20% a reduction in valuation for our homes. And most of all, the children. The children deserve a healthy environment. Not this, it may not submit radiation to it. It does. It's known fact, but nobody wants to admit it. we really need to do the right thing for our community. Don't let Mahopac get this bad publicity, being the first one who has a cell tower at the edge of people's driveways. Not in the background, but right there where the driveways, home residential, are 100 feet. I thank you for listening to me. I appreciate your efforts, but we really need to seriously not set a precedent where big tech companies can go in there and put a cell tower 100 feet from a resident's home. I don't think you would want it. I know I don't want it. I mean, I'm not right there, but I am within the 1,000 miles from the tower if it develops. So again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to be heard?
Can I say one more thing?
So you-
So I mentioned.
Wait till you get up there and restate your name when you get up there.
Oh, okay. Evangelia Leclerc. I live on Glenacom Road. So like I mentioned earlier, I walk every day for 9 years, an hour, and I'm very observant of the nature. And I think I came from Queens 9 years ago, I lived underneath a train. And so when I came up here from the city and had the opportunity, thank God, to be able to work from home and walk every morning for an hour and see the turtles, and I ran into the Audubon Society, basically, let me tell you, I was like, what are you doing? They count the bird migration on Glenacom Lake. Do you know this? And I'm like, wow. And they're like, yeah, things have changed a little bit, but we really enjoy coming here. So not only does that health benefits, but the value of the environment and what we have in our little community. Am I gonna feel proud coming from Queens, living under a train, to be like, a cell phone tower, or to be able to invite my friends, or sell my home, maybe 5-10 years from now? Am I gonna feel proud to say, I came here and now this is what I'm looking at, and who's gonna really buy my home now? Like, that's the impact that we're having here. By being able to resort to a tech company, Verizon, I love them, I had no issue with them, like the gentleman said, living here, working from home, it's a big impact. And it's something that only the few Mahopac residents, or not the few, but the people of Mahopac really value and cherish the lake that they've had for 40 years. That has changed, but imagine the changes that will happen 10 years from now if this thing rises up. With the environment, the impact on kids, our health, the beauty of the environment that we get to enjoy. It's a shame. I'm sorry, but thank you for listening. And I thank you for everything that you've been doing over the course of however long you've been dealing with this.
Thank you.
For everybody here.
Sir, did you want to get up and speak?
Thank you for your time. My name is Gerard Hanrahan, 25 Summer Circle Drive, Mahopac. I'd invite you guys to come up to Walton Drive and figure out for yourself. There's no problem with the cell service. And there's been no transparency. This is going on for a couple of years. The first letter I received from these people was a week ago inviting me here. There's no transparency. I disagree with a lot was mentioned here. And thanks for your time, and I hope you look at it like your peers did, open-minded.
I believe we've all been up to the, I believe we've all been up to the property. We're very familiar with the property. We've all been up there touring.
No, I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I just want to add one additional
Please restate your name.
Edward Nieves.
Thank you.
T. Kettle Spot Road, sorry. So in research, I'm in the scientific field. So a lot of times when we observe something, we have to go through a lot of criticism before we get it to publish. 5G has only been around for a few years now. The effects of 5G has not been noted for the health benefits. It's just starting to come out. And that's the reference that I was bringing out. And that's why I was trying to really emphasize that the guidelines that they set for these things was based in the 80s and the 90s. Scientific evidence and then, their assumptions that they made. the publications that are coming out are addressing every single assumption and bringing out what happens to actual people. And it's serious now. It really is. So what you're having something so close to the house, think of a bass. You ever hear those cars that go by with that nice bass? Low frequency. And you could hear it and you can feel it. And sometimes you could feel the rattling. Well, this is also frequency. It's not low frequency, it's much higher. But they have done studies on these things. You see, and that's what's coming out now. So you're going to see a lot more regarding 5G, 6G, radio frequencies of cell phone use. You see, and that's the only thing that's making it harder because we have to convince everybody. You see, and that's what makes it hard. So that's good, and that's what they are trying to do. They're trying to convince why their cell tower should be required there. So it's, you know, it's both sides, but, you know, you think of it and think of what you want it to be, you see. Residential, nobody, like many people have stated, nobody wants a cell tower so close to their house. And then what would happen afterwards with the damage? Once the damage is done, then who's going to pay for it? Well, it goes back to us. We're paying taxes here, and when the damage occurs, we'll continue to pay taxes for it. Will they be? Not necessarily. So that's another thing to consider. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
One more comment, since we're moving on. While we cannot, unfortunately... speak
Please
about
restate your name.
Rosemary Lee, 43 Walton. While we cannot talk about health effects, although obviously people are concerned, we can all look back to the installations of facilities like power plants, et cetera, nuclear plants, and we didn't know what the technology was going to yield in 20 years or 30 years, and we're in that position now. So aside from not being able to talk about health effects because the FCC has a gag order on you and on us, even though there is evidence out there, there are other issues such as insurance in the long term. This is a risk. The world's largest insurance companies classify 5G as a high-impact risk, and they're not insuring. Lloyd's of London is not insuring these facilities. So who is going to bear the burden of the costs when we do have claims arising out of this? Verizon said, our business faces personal injury and wrongful death lawsuits related to alleged health effects of wireless phones or radio frequencies transmitters. We may incur significant expenses in defending these lawsuits, and we may be required to pay significant awards or settlements. That may be the future, but if they're not insured and you don't get any insurance from those types of liabilities, who is going to pay? We will pay that cost as well. So we need some protection from this movement towards 5G. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Craig Vieira, 26 Walton Drive. Just to touch upon what was mentioned earlier, this area on Walton Drive is a priority 5 based on town code. If this antenna does go up, it will change the priority of this area, make it, I believe it is a priority 2. And I'm not only concerned about other cell towers. My concern is if this tower does go up, it is now a priority 2. And as we know, they were looking for other areas to improve coverage in the town of Mahopac. Who's to say 6 months from now, they say, oh, you know what will solve other areas, excuse me, the self coverage problems? Another cell tower. Well, can't do that. Well, how about a taller tower on Walton Drive? Your town code tells us we should go to priority 2. That's also what I'm afraid of. It's not just this tower. Yes, I do not want this tower. I also don't want a bigger, stronger, more powerful tower because our town code says that's where it should go. Other thing is too, you know, forgive me if I mispronounce his name, Mr. Godioso, had said, you know, there is some benefit to the town of Carmel if this tower goes up. But I believe we all know that the major benefit is for the Lake Lincolndale, Westchester County area. Of course, there's going to be some residual benefit to the town. And I don't believe it should go in our town for their benefit. And he has stated in the past that, RF signals don't know boundaries. And he's right, they don't. We as humans do. And I believe you as a planning board set boundaries and look at boundaries. And I think you need to weigh what is the benefit for our town versus this tower going up and the destruction of our comfort in our town. So that's all I'd say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard tonight? So I have a suggestion for the board. Go ahead.
Mr. Vicente would just like to add one thing.
If I may, I've been listening to.
Please restate your.
Manny Vicente, President of Homeland Tower, sorry. I've been listening to the folks in the audience for a very long time. We've had a lot of meetings, and some of the things that have been said, I understand completely. But what is very clear is these facilities do go in residential areas all the time. I have one in my neighborhood. I can see from my back porch, my deck, my kitchen window, from most areas in my house. My neighbors still talk to me. Okay? The areas that need better service, that need to be covered, are in residential areas, primarily in these neck of the woods. The commercial areas get targeted first. That's where the traffic is. That's where the coverage is. So I know a lot of people intuitively think these shouldn't go in residential areas, and you have every right to believe that. But the fact is, that's where most of our work is these days, in residential areas, in North Salem, in Bedford, in New Canaan, in Somers, here in Carmel, in Putnam Valley. We have applications in all those towns, in Yorktown, everywhere. Because the networks demand it, the usage is demanding it, the coverage is needed, the service is needed. Okay, that's something that's very important that I keep hearing, and this idea that it's outlandish or crazy to put a facility like this in a residential area. It's just not true, not even in your own town historically. Okay?
So, Manny, how do you respond to people that say that our area coverage is fine? Be specific, our area coverage is fine here, but this is really going to benefit Westchester and Lincolndale. How do you respond to that?
The carriers are in charge of running and maintaining that network to make sure that their customers have all the services that they need, the technologies, the usage that they demand, and that's available to them, right? So it'd be akin for you to tell the utility company how to do their job when distributing electricity, what voltage. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do it like that. You should do it like this. Our code says do it like that. They're in charge of their infrastructure. They're in charge of getting that vital service to the public. They're the ones that are the experts in doing that. So to think that we would be here, Verizon would be engaged in the effort that we engaged in if it wasn't necessary or needed, it's illogical. It doesn't make any sense. You can come up with all the rationale reasons you want to. It just doesn't make any sense. I also wanted to say that this idea that it diminishes value of a community somehow, whether property values or otherwise. I just came from the New York State Town Association meetings in New York City. Most of the municipalities in New York State were there, had a presence. I believe you guys were there as well. And what I heard from them, and in my conversations with them, is that they're having problems in a lot of communities getting people to buy homes and move there because they don't have wireless coverage, because they don't have broadband, because they don't have these facilities and the services. They're having a serious time. As a matter of fact, many of them were going to petition the governor to say any housing plans for affordable housing should be tied to proof that there's coverage for the people that are going to live in those homes. That's how important they think it is.
Most of our projects are municipal or government projects. That's why I go to these events. So I want to make sure that you hear from me. I know we focused a lot on Walton, on this application and the neighborhood, as we should. But when I hear these statements being made, we're in the 21st century, okay? The networks need to grow, and where they need to grow are in most of Putnam County is residential. Most of northern Westchester is residential. If you're gonna go out and network, how are you gonna do it without being in residential areas? Okay, and do you tell the utility company how to do their job and what voltage to use, what lines to use, how they account for safety and other factors? You don't do that, but everyone wants to do that with the wireless industry. And I understand that you want to have some controls and you want to have some say in what happens, and you should. But this perception that we're evil, that it's nonsense, that it shouldn't be in residential areas, that all the stuff that I'm hearing, it may be convenient and some people may be serious about it, but the reality of the world is very different.
To comment on what you're saying, so I hear you, and I think most people in this room will agree that, you know, you do need cell service in residential areas. I don't think anybody's disputing that. But I think what I'm hearing from everybody, and I know what I'm feeling, is that when you put this cell tower 174 feet from somebody's front door, that's the problem.
I understand that, and I'm sensitive to it. But when we were when there was a litigation and we were trying to settle it, we offered to move it, going through the wetlands and doing additional impacts and additional work against your code, to move it all the way towards the power lines, back as far back on the property as possible. And the answer we got, we don't care.
Okay,
Doesn't
so
do
let me ask you
anything
this.
for us.
So
What do
you
you do?
abandon that? I mean, I think these people here tonight might feel, given a choice of 174 feet from somebody's front door or putting it back there, I think perhaps people might be a little more receptive to it now, but can you understand somebody's apprehension when you come?
If members of the public that are against it and because we offered that during the litigation, it was turned down. If people want us to investigate a different area of the property, up on top, because obviously down there we can't go and it's not gonna work, we'll do that. That's what we've been trying to do. We're trying to show you why we're where we're at, okay, for all those reasons. The other thing that I want to mention is people keep saying that, you know, we didn't look, that this is the first place we went. That's not true. And I think the record and what we've submitted shows that. And at none of these hearings have I heard anyone say a specific property that's better, that we should be looking at, or we should be considering putting the tower on, even if it's available, which to us, we can't find it.
I think that that's a disingenuous statement. I mean,
Right. Well-
is anybody in this audience qualified to stand up and say, hey, I think this is a good location for your tower?
But they're qualified to say we didn't look at anything else. I mean, my point is.
Mr. Chairman, hold on a second. If we're gonna have this discussion, we need some decorum in the room. I'm sorry, but that's unacceptable. That's the shouting and calling us carpetbaggers and the applause. If that's where we're gonna go, then this discussion.
There was a 10-second, 5-second.
I know, but it's been going on all night.
The meeting's been
If
very.
we're gonna have this discussion, that we're trying to make progress, and we're trying to have
Continue.
an open and honest discussion, then we need some decorum. That's all I would ask.
Yeah,
I think you have it.
to your point, it's not their job to prove anything. It's our job. And I think we've done that with all our submissions and all the work that we've done. And what my point that I'm saying is, we can't find another location. We've documented that. No one has, that I heard, has come up to us and said, we missed something. You didn't go there. Check that. We did. We checked everything. We're very limited here. We're very limited here. And I think once you look at a map, you can see that. All right? I just wanted to say these few things because I keep hearing the same comments. And I think people shouldn't be outraged that these facilities go in residential areas, number one. And I think this talk of value, you know, you got to think about value a little bit. Do people want to move to a place that doesn't have services for them, where they can't do what they need to do.
I think people
That's
want, I
important.
think people want to move where there's services, but not 140 feet from their homes.
I understand that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this topic tonight? I think what's best, I appreciate everyone's comments, I appreciate your comments, I appreciate the community's comments. Mr. Guardioso, you submitted a large package today. I really think the board needs time to review that.
As well as the public.
Yeah, as well as the public, yeah. And I think we need to keep the public hearing open for another couple of weeks for the next. Typically, I don't keep public hearings open because I'm not sure if we have another meeting, we're going to hear anything new, to be honest with you. But I think in this case, we can keep the public hearing open for 2 more weeks. And it gives us time and the public time to review the package that was submitted this afternoon. I think that's fair for everybody, and we can do it in 2 weeks, which really won't delay anything. It's been around for a while. Pat, that seem reasonable to you, and Rich, and Joe, that okay with you?
Works for me.
Mr. Guardioso?
And we would just like to see the package that was submitted tonight as well, so we would ask for a copy of that.
Yeah, we'll get you a copy of that.
We'll have Rose send it out.
Rose is gonna send it to you. Rich took one for Rose.
Copies of these photographs as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we'll exchange all documentation.
Those photographs aren't being left with us, so.
Well, they were presented at the public hearing, so I think we're entitled to a copy. of them.
I'm not saying
They're
you're
part of
not.
the record, so they're part of the record.
Yeah.
So, I don't see any reason why we can't review this in the next 2 weeks. I guess everybody does. Please notify Rose, you'll get the information.
And
Mr. Guardioso?
what's the date of that, Mr. Chairman, just so it's on the record? Because we did send, there was another comment about the notices. We sent the notices out actually early compared to what the code required. Just,
The notices are in compliance with the law.
It'll be the fourth,
22nd.
22nd.
fourth Wednesday of the month,
22nd.
March 22nd.
and that's 7 PM?
Yes.
Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Please, go ahead.
I just did.
Say it loud. I don't think I heard it.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Sorry?